need a gavel.
Yeah, you do. I got a couple.
I do too. Okay, if we can call everybody to take their seats. I would like to call to order the Planning, Building, and Zoning Committee meeting for April 17th, 2017. And would the secretary please call the roll?
Chairman Mills.
Present.
Vice Chairman Vandenberg.
Present.
Trustee Stanton.
Present.
Trustee Newell.
Present.
Trustee Palafis.
Present.
Trustee Gata.
Present.
Mayor McLeod.
Present.
Thank you. I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes of March 20th.
So move. I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any changes or
Didn't say
corrections
so.
needed? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Oh, one abstention. Thank you. New business this evening. Number 1, request approval by homeowner for release of a portion of open space easements at 1766 Shorewood Drive to construct a shed.
So moved. I'll second.
Motion and second. Staff, you have anything you want to bring up on that?
Nothing on this. This is very similar to easement releases the board has approved in the past.
Okay. Any questions?
I do.
Yes, Trustee Stanton.
How many feet away from the line, of the back line, is this shed going to be?
It's about 14 feet from the rear property line and 7 from the side.
Okay, and the utilities are, this won't be over any utility lines?
Correct.
Okay,
Okay.
that's it.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Number 2, request by the Children's Advocacy Center for A, an extension of the lease to December 31st, 2030, and B, a site plan approval for the Butterfly Garden.
So moved. I'll second.
I have a motion and a second, I assume, on both A and B. Thank you. Staff, I know we had something up here on the dais tonight about this.
Yes, ma'am. There's just a couple slight revisions to the lease
Okay.
after legal did one more review of it.
Okay.
So it's subject to the
Use your mic, please.
It's these, the document that's up and on the dais, not the one in the packet.
Okay.
So the approval is subject to those minor changes?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion that you made then, Trustee Gata, was for the final version.
That is correct.
Thank you. And the second also.
And my second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't believe we have demised premises. The language here says demised premises, should be designated premises.
From one attorney to another?
was still here
Patty?
yesterday.
That is a carryover from the original 1992 lease, and where they did refer to it as demised premises, and it's been carried through 4 other leases as well. I'm not unfamiliar with the term demised premises. It did not strike me as designated as
Designated would
Updated.
seem to be approved, improvement over demised, or more appropriate, yeah. So I'm asking that that be changed to designated premises.
And we can do that before we sign the lease if that's part of the motion maker and the seconder's motion.
Yes, sir.
It's part of their motion. So it will be as amended at this point,
Correct.
okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Number 3, request by Plum Grove Printers for a resolution supporting a Cook County Class 6B as in boy classification for property tax assessment purposes for the site located at 2160 Stonington Avenue.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Staff, this is pretty much what we have to do in order to get this to go before Cook County. They have the final say on this.
Yeah, you might remember in December, the board approved a resolution to support their 7C application for the project that they're wanting to do.
yeah.
They went to Cook County and applied, and Cook County said, yeah, it seems like a really good project, but it more fits the 6B classification, so go back and make sure the village still would support your 6B application.
Okay. Any questions, comments on this? And this is again for 12 years, correct? 6 and 6 normally?
Correct.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And next, number 4, request by Golden Goose Enterprises, LLC, Rubina Realty Corporation, and Plum Groves, OSR 72, LLC, for consideration of A development agreement for the 16-acre parcel of the proposed Plum Farms development, B, a development agreement for the 24-acre parcel of the proposed Plum Farms development, and C, an annexation agreement for the 145-acre parcel currently unincorporated of the proposed Plum Farms development.
So moved.
I'll second.
For the edification of the audience, just so you know, well, at this point, we will be having the developer come forward and do a presentation, correct? And do whatever else they wish to bring before us this evening. We will then ask the board if they have any questions. Once that is completed, I'll open it up for any additional questions or comments that need to be made. Mr. Norton, you're going to take it?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairperson and members of the committee. My name is Matt Norton. I'm the attorney for the owners for the Plum Farms project. And with me this evening is Anthony Iatarola, one of the owners and representing the three ownership groups this evening. It's a pleasure to be here before you this evening to, we hope, finish the culmination of a process that you started and that we started really in 2003 when we started to negotiate the annexation agreements for the annexation agreement for the two corner properties, the hard corners of Route 59 and 72, the northwest corner and the southwest corner. And I know that you weren't all on the board then, but in 2004, the village approved an annexation agreement for those properties and approved the commercial mixed-use zoning district for both of those corners, the northwest corner and the southwest corner. The southwest corner, of course, has developed into a Poplar Creek shopping center, the Target-anchored shopping center that Arcon developed. And the northwest corner is a topic of one of our agreements this evening. That annexation agreement for the two corners in 2004 also included a pre-annexation agreement exhibit for the 145 acres that is the topic of tonight's annexation agreement. That pre-annexation agreement included a version of the TN zoning district that we'll ask you to consider this evening. So the CMU district and at least a prior version of the TN district have been around since 2004. And the third parcel, so there's the 24 acres, these 145 acres, and then the 16-acre parcel was the subject of a development agreement approved by the village in 2009. That parcel was also zoned into the CMU zoning district. So these properties have been on the table, so to speak, for quite a few years. The CMU zoning that would be changed via the agreements that you're considering this evening really is not going to change much at all. Most of the changes are to bring those zoning districts in accord with a few other changes that the village has made to its other zoning over time. So those are, for the most part, housekeeping changes. And again, the TN zoning district has been on the books in draft form for 13 years now, and we're asking the village to codify the final form of that this evening. The agreements that you would approve this evening, the agreement for the 24-acre parcel would essentially replace the annexation agreement for that same 24-acre parcel that was approved in 2004. The 16-acre agreement that you would consider tonight would replace the 16-acre agreement that you approved in 2009, and the annexation agreement for the 145 acres would replace the pre-annexation agreement applicable to that property. And what these, even though there's still 3 parcels and 3 agreements, these agreements really tie the 3 parcels together in several key ways. One is it puts them all in the same time frame. They would all be now in a 20-year time frame going forward. They would have a combined density maximum, 1,325 units maximum on all 3 parcels combined. Actually, which is a lower density. If you took the 3 existing agreements and combined them, that would be a lower density than is allowed under the existing agreements. And I think one of the most important ways that these three agreements bind the three parcels together is through stormwater. There is an existing MWRD-approved stormwater management plan for the property. There is a tremendous amount of wetlands on particularly the 145-acre parcel, and it will serve as detention for it itself and the other two parcels. One of the additional protections that's provided for in these three agreements was absent in the current agreements, is that the village is allowed to create a backup special service area for these three parcels, and in fact, that backup SSA must be established before the owners undertake any work that affects stormwater drainage. So that's an additional protection added for the village's benefit. The agreements also tie the project together in terms of height limits. From north to south in the various neighborhoods, there are height limits that exist that are more strict than what is provided for in the zoning itself. So again, even though there are three parcels and three agreements, they're tied together in many important ways, and I think that's one of the important factors of these three agreements. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Iacciarola now to describe the project for you, but I did want to assure you of one thing, and that is there was a suggestion that notices had not been provided or applications had not been submitted. All applications that are required for the level of approvals that are being sought at this time have been filed. All required legal notices that are required to be served or published or posted have been served, published, and posted. I wanted to assure you of that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Iacciarola. I represent each of the owners. I'm with 587 LLC. This has been a process. For most of us, including Mayor McLeod, Jim Norris, Karen, Mark Copeland, Pete Gugliotta, Mike Henke, we've been at this one way or the other since 2003, and more recently since December of 2014. First and foremost, I want to thank all of you, Mayor McLeod, the trustees, for having us tonight. I want to thank especially Jim Norris, Mark Copeland, Pete Gugliotta, Kevin Kramer, Mike Henke, for the hundreds of hours of just hard work, almost unfathomable. The meetings, the phone calls, the emails, with trying to take what we committed to back in #04 and bring it to a heightened level. Without your team, and your team is just incredibly talented, we would not be here today. Earlier, I heard a remark about us coming and going. Actually, I'm only guessing that we've probably been here longer than virtually most of the people, if not all of the people in this room, since those corners were acquired in 1959 by my father after he got out of serving in the jungles of New Guinea in World War II. He came back to the States and opened up a grocery store, and then from there bought some farmland in a couple of areas, and in this case in Chicago, back in '59, the year the village was incorporated. He acquired the two corners. It was a few years later, in 1962, that he thought to acquire, with a couple other men, what we now refer to as 145 acres. And people thought he was crazy, buying the stuff at that time in that area. And then in the early 90s, we dedicated land from the two corners for actually a traffic signal that Paula and her village, and Mike Jaffe enjoyed when he built the Arboretum at Regency Boulevard there. So that traffic signal was the result of our work with IDOT. We also dedicated land south of 72, and as a result, really in union with the owners of the Avalon parcel, came the traffic signal into what is now Poplar Creek Crossing. Matt talked about '04, so I want to skip ahead to '06. '06 was a seminal moment because basically the largest retail center in the village opened up on one of the pieces that we owned. And we actually kept back a little parcel, we call it the reserve parcel, that last year opened up and was finally developed despite some geo issues that were resolved. And you guys know, and we all enjoy a Starbucks, a Firehouse Sub, and I think a mattress company there. So, and then in '07, we acquired the 16 acres, and that was really with an eye toward putting this project in a position where all of it could be planned and then developed comprehensively. And in 14, when we began in December of that year in earnest negotiations and discussions with the village, right before that we acquired the balance of the 145 acres from some of the families who co-own that parcel with us. And really today, we're here, oh, yeah, we can, excuse me. One sec. All right, yeah. And you can tackle down, but, okay. Yeah, go down. Yep. Okay. So really the first phase of this is, which is shown on the board right now, is Poplar Creek Crossing. And this is really a continuation of what we began back in '04. Next slide, please. That shows the land geography in the area. And on the plat of subdivision, I'm going to move over for a second. Mark, do we have the portable?
It's in the, check inside the little cabinet there. Just make sure the battery's in.
It's dead.
Okay. Yeah, all right. This is truly, yep, the plat of subdivision. So right now incorporated within the village limits is the corner that we refer to as the 24 acres, the 16 acres, which is just to the west of it, and then subject to the agreement back in '04 is the 145 acres that is the subject of the annexation this evening. The project itself now is truly, this is a mixed-use project. I can't call it by any other moniker. Oh, thank you. All right. Oh, much better. Okay. You want to flip that, Gabe? All right. Just a little bit about behind the scenes. You know, we have worked incredibly hard with Ellen's predecessor, Gary Salovich, and Mike Hankey, and the entire village team. This, by the way, is simply the plat of subdivision. The next thing is to bring a great deal of science to this project. This is this was a way to sort of demarcate what theoretically could become neighborhoods. When in fact, for example, Area A and Area B, more likely than not, will probably be developed by a single builder. And so really it would be one integrated neighborhood. The next plan is a utility plan that, while conceptual, is probably in large part, especially the trunk lines, is probably where all of those utilities will go. The running utilities from south of Route 72 to north of Route 72, all of what is depicted there is actually, that's science. Those are engineered plans. The balance of it are also engineered plans, and we would be hard pressed to put those trunk lines in any place other than where they're shown, which is around that central complex. The next leg of this is the stormwater plan that actually you approved back in, I want to say, a couple of years ago. And we have a tremendous environmental team, Midwest Environmental. We work with Applied Geoscience, who's also a contractor, a vendor of the village, and with Christopher Burke and Thomas Burke. And so that stormwater plan reflects literally years of planning, both with the village and with our team, and then approved by you a couple of years ago. The next thing is a transportation plan that actually was driven by a very, very detailed study by KLOA Engineering, probably is recognized as a transportation consultant as exists in the metro area, and Lue Abuna, and with a lot of feedback from Mike Hankey and his team. And as a result, especially the areas along the state routes and Old Sutton Road, quite frankly, that is at a fairly significant engineering level. Now, it'll still have to be approved by IDOT and by the Cook County Department of Transportation, but at least at our level, we took it to a point in time where I think we can say we see eye to eye with what likely would need to be improved along those state routes and the county road. Which then takes me to the overall master plan. I'm just going to grab a drink here. And while these things typically are per Attorney Bernie a little bit earlier, just high glossy graphics and colorful pictures, the reality of it is that what you see here is actually something that is engineered and fits with the district. I'm going to stand in somebody's way somewhere. All right, just sort of high level. This is the area right here that is under contract with Urban Street Group, and those are the apartments. And then this area right in here after, just a word about the school site. So when we first started to plan, this was obviously a confusing geographic area for us because it was, it had two school districts, and the Barbara Rose School, which is a little bit to the east on Bartlett and just off Penny Road, we thought was the logical 220 site. And then as far as 300 goes, most of the product that has been designed for 300 is really multifamily or attached living. And so just bluntly, we didn't see a significant amount of school children being generated by that type of product, and especially because the true underlying market demand through the studies that we've gone through and submitted to you guys, in fact, represented millennial and more empty nester living. So it really wasn't until we sat down with 220 and 300 in the Regan room recently, and the two school districts said, hey, we're going to need a site out this way. And I think the beauty of their communication to us is they also talked about working very closely together on a single school, which for at least I know for myself, and I think I can speak for the village team, was we thought was awesome that they would work together and work collaboratively, given the quandary of being in two school districts. So as a result, you see the school site over here, and that represents, by the way, that structure right there is about 100,000 square feet with adequate parking, more than adequate parking, and then
We can't see what you're pointing at.
That's okay. You can follow along.
Let me, if I could say something, then unfortunately, I tried to scan over there while I had the laser on it. The camera doesn't pick up the laser at all.
Yeah.
So that's why I went back to the screen.
If you come over on this side, Anthony, then I think that camera will get.
I don't think it will. I tried it.
Yeah, just point to it.
Let him move over.
Run.
Keep going.
Wait, they're getting over. Now you're on.
All right, I'm gonna point.
Point will work.
Yeah, all right. So here's the school site down in here that represents about 2.5 acres of park with a track, soccer field, a building with basketball courts. The trail system that runs throughout the project is alongside it. And then as we move a little bit further north, while these appear as attached units, these are actually detached lots. The dark brown is attached living. And so, and as we run further north, you see the bulk of the rest of the single family. And by the way, the 220 line, let me just, the 220 line probably comes in right about here. So, you know, on this plan, I think we show about 200 units in total in 220. With the vast bulk of the units being in School District 300. And then east of Old Sutton Road and west of Route 59, you see more lotting for single-family homes in this area in the northeast quadrant of the site. And then as we get further along, this is attached living right in here. And these are flats for sale. And flat living akin to what you would see, what I grew up in, which was a flat above a grocery store. And then the corner itself is primarily commercial. The dark areas represent residential massing above the commercial. And then a little bit to the north is more straight residential. And so really, in this area, from here on down is probably 70% of the residential units are right along Higgins Road. So just that's a little bit as to the master plan. Let me see the next slide. And from this point forward, now we're going to just show you a rendering. And really this is, while this is rendering that, for example, in this case, this is really a collaboration with Ryan Murphy from Vequity, Eric Weatherholtz and Mike Townsend, the guys that brought us Archon and Poplar Creek Crossing. The residential and behind, it was actually the work of Terry Smith of Blood, Good, Sharp, and Buster. So, and then, and so while it's a rendering, it really fits zoning and quite frankly, we've rendered this in this way because this is the direction that we'd like to take it in, and quite frankly, could build to it. This is just street level at the corner. You know, part of let me get back over here for just a second. The phasing for all of this, to answer the one gentleman's question, is probably something closer to 8 years. And you know, the other day when Cranes put out that article, which they interviewed a man named Tracy Cross, and Tracy is someone that I met probably about 15, 20 years ago, and he offered remark back then that, you know, this is an area where, you know, you'll probably see a lot of growth at some point in the future. And what he suggested in that article about something like this being, you know, really feasible for this area, we've had no contact with him in 20 years. So it was of his own volition that he spoke up and said, hey, this is something that I think is very feasible and would fit the area. So, you know, to say that this would contribute to the vitality of Hoffman Estates in the surrounding area, some of the men that spoke here tonight, these men, they've been working commercial throughout the United States for years, and the irony of it is that they've also been a part of this team in one way or the other, either making it happen or likely to make it happen in terms of commerce. And the national recognition, I think, that John McClendon spoke to, you know, for example, Monday, we're meeting at Google, and, you know, I think because we're concentrating on a project that will serve how people want to live, it's gotten the attention of the national marketplace. And so, you know, it's an awesome opportunity to sit with Google this coming Monday and to talk about Nest and the connected home environment. You know, in addition, Meredith Publishing, which publishes Better Home and Gardens and Parents Magazine and Midwest Living, they've also been tracking this and have talked about running a spread in their publications. I'm going to continue with a few more renderings and then finish this up. This right here, by the way, is a farm-to-table concept that we developed 20 years ago that we'd like to bring to the corner. And it's a delicatessen and a cafe that is representative of the school site that I had shown a little bit earlier that the individual in the crowd had asked me to point out. And by the way, if you look closely in the inset on each of these renderings is where the particular land use is being depicted on the site. These are the elevations that USG has tendered regarding the apartments. This right here is representative of the flat living that we were talking about a little bit earlier, I was talking about. And then I'll just kind of toggle through these, but these are the single family coach homes along a courtyard, single family homes also with a courtyard. The trail system is in the foreground in this picture here. These are lots closer to the north end of the site. And then this is that Circle Park area with more homes along that park. And then this is the area just west of Old Sutton Road, single family living. This is along the buffers. And then this is on Old Sutton Road, just showing a park system right there, part of the park system, which, by the way, let me just show one other thing overall on the plan. This is the pointer. So the white areas depict park areas, the white circles, and there's a series of parks, including a dog park, pickleball court, basketball courts, and then within the trail system in the blue dots, here, 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 and throughout, is we'll ask each of the builders to commit to installing outdoor art along the way, and so that we can truly tie this entire community together through the trail system, through art, etc. Let me come back over here. No, I'm good, Gaby. And this is at the north end of the site. This, by the way, this is about as conceptual as it gets, but quite frankly, this is something that is near and dear to us, and we've given it, we call it the Tranquility Center, just a place where people can come and just enjoy some respite and detach themselves from the day-to-day. This, for us, represents a sustainable community. It'll be engineered to be sustainable. We will eventually, we hope to test your building code with pervious elements to demonstrate that, in fact, pervious surfaces, you know, while good for the environment, will also stand the test of time. So sustainability is important to us. I would be remiss if I didn't just cover briefly a little bit of the revenue side of this equation. At full build-out, the estimated, the EAV is approximately $225 million. There's about $4 million in fees directly to benefit the village and the Park District. The school district spoke earlier about the school impacts. We also have Park District impact fees per code that obviously we're committed to paying. We estimate sales taxes likely exceeding about $1.4 million on average annually, in addition to food and beverage, entertainment, amusement, utility, and transfer taxes, and of course, the disposable income that arises out of this project should be, I think, of benefit to especially the surrounding businesses, including the Arboretum, for that matter. A project like this will generate about 1,600 to 1,700 temporary construction jobs. Permanent jobs, it's probably a little bit under 300 total permanent jobs. And as far as recreational and other community benefits, I touched on the school, the parks, the path, the creek walk. You know, there's about 65 acres of green and other open space on this project. We hope to attract, finally, that grocery store that's eluded that intersection, a hardware store, and other neighborhood services. I think as important as anything is the diversified housing stock, what we call the missing middle, offering residents who seek alternative housing an opportunity to actually remain in the village. You know, one of the dialogues that I had with Dean Bostrom was when he saw the project, he's like, boy, you know, something like this makes me want to live back in the village. And then obviously we think, quite frankly, that so many of the individuals behind us, if it's not them, it'll be their children who want to stay in the area, like a Michael Smith, and who will actually move into this project from outside the village of Hoffman Estates into the village of Hoffman Estates. In summary, this is probably what I hope to be the best example of what we call intergenerational living, being able to live in one place and live through generations within a sustainable and now technological environment, which allows for aging independently in place. We will embrace the ecosystem we have and the surroundings in a traditional neighborhood mixed-use environment. This is truly a mix of uses. This will activate, much like Poplar Creek Crossing did, this will activate additional retail, entertainment, and office near the village's western boundary. You know, Kevin Kramer, he scours the marketplace for development and business opportunities. And the opportunity for Kevin now, you know, to strategically be able to say that people can buy into a setting like this and live affordably and comfortably is going to be a huge plus. And I know recently, you guys, you, at least I understood that sort of generally there was an opportunity to bring another company into this area. It'll be wonderful to be able to offer new housing stock and alternative housing stock to prospects like that. For those who were here in the early 2000s when Sears came here, one of the big challenges when Sears moved out here was actually providing housing to their employees. And they bus people in from all over. I mean, if anybody, and I'm not sure if anybody out there actually sat and watched at any point in time where Sears entrance was, that was like O'Hare Terminal with buses bringing people into this area. Tonight is the next step in building pride in our village, and an opportunity to give the national marketplace another glimpse of why Hoffman Estates is a special place to live, work, and play. We look forward to undertaking Plum Farm's contribution to the village's growing to greatness and respectfully seek your approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iatarola. Did you have anything else, anyone else that needed to present from your group? Thank you. Staff, did you want to respond to anything right now?
Respond to questions. I think that we probably are best not trying to present, but respond to questions
Okay.
from the board.
Sounds good. All right, I'll open it up to the board at this point. Mayor?
Tonight, we are asked to consider the following: development entitlements and monetary incentives to develop property on the northwest corner of Route 72 and Route 59. I understand there are 3 parcels involved: a 16-acre parcel that already is subject to existing development agreement approved by this board in 2009, a 24-acre parcel that has already received developmental entitlements and monetary sales tax and property tax rebates pursuant to an existing annexation agreement approved in 2004, a 145-acre parcel that has proposed annexations agreement drafted in 2004. Notwithstanding these prior agreements, the property remains undeveloped. Before proceeding with the new proposals, I believe this board and our constituents are entitled to know what development concessions have been granted the owners and the type and amount of any monetary incentives that they have already been approved. Furthermore, I would then like to know what entitlements and monetary incentives are contained in the new development agreements and the estimated value of those concessions. Once this board has received this information, we can then learn about what benefits the village is going to receive if it approves these agreements. In short, we will then know what we are paying for and how much it is costing. As Trustee Palafis has often said, we cannot evaluate a program until we receive measurable criteria. I just want to have a clear idea of the benefits and costs contained in these documents, and I hope my fellow board members would want nothing less. It is unfortunate that we received these documents for the first time on Good Friday and had to review hundreds and hundreds of pages over Easter weekend. Considering this should be family time, I question if everyone had sufficient time to read, much less understand, all the provisions contained in the agreements. I was able to review most of the information, but have a number of issues I'd like clarified. It is my understanding the staff has been working on this matter for many months, if not years. We all appreciate the dedicated efforts of our staff. But it took the staff 6 months to 1 year to negotiate and draft these agreements. How then can the corporate authority be expected to conduct its due diligence if given only 4 days over the Easter weekend to review and understand its contents? More concerning is the expectation that the village board will approve everything in one night without the benefit of full hearings. This board's regular order and procedure is to consider matters at a committee meeting and then have 2 weeks before it's considered at a board meeting. The agenda being submitted by the village manager requesting an up or down vote on a large development package all in one evening is contrary to standard procedure. After receiving incentives in the 2004 annexation agreement, the property has remained vacant for 12 years. Why then are we not following procedure? Finally, I would suggest the corporate authority establish an incentive policy regarding property development agreements and annexation agreements. The board should be approving and setting incentive policies, not staff. When negotiating development agreements, staff should be following corporate authority direction. It is inappropriate for the board to be following the dictates of village staff. Such a system also precludes the ability of this board and its members from offering input and suggestions that might better be in the interest of the village. Personally, I cannot fulfill my ethical obligation as mayor until I understand what benefits the village is achieving by approving these agreements and how much is costing the village. We can begin to go through development documents tonight, or we can set this matter for a separate hearing date. My suggestion would be to set a separate hearing date.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions up here?
I have some.
Okay, staff, are you prepared to answer any of those questions tonight, or?
A little bit. The reason that they're all on the same agenda is because normally the committee scheduled for tonight would have been on April 10th. April 10th was a religious holiday. It's this board's policy that when there's a religious holiday, they move the committee meetings forward. It is also this board's ability to decide if they want to do exactly what the mayor said, which is to do as much as you want to do tonight, set another date, continue it as has been done in the past. There is absolutely no objection from staff at all. That's not our place. It's whatever the board decides they want to do. As far as the incentives that are in the agreement, they pretty much mirror what was approved by the board in 2004. 29% sales tax rebate, and it's a
100% property tax for the commercial.
only on commercial. There are some fee waivers. They're very similar to the ones that were also granted in 2004. Because we don't know the exact development number of units per parcel, it's hard to calculate because some of it's based upon size of water meter and those type of things. So when you're talking about tap-on fees, connection fees, they're hard to estimate. As far as the traffic impact fees, they're paying them, but we have pre-calculated what the credits would be allowed under our ordinance because we know what type of improvements already they're going to have to do that are capacity related. That's in the agreement. If the board would desire to have an itemized spreadsheet of all that, we'll have to prepare that, and we can do that. I would also add that this is the forum where the board typically has involvement in any incentives we've done in the past. And I appreciate the mayor's comments. If the board wants to set a standing policy, that's the board's purview. It has not been that way in my 19 years of being here as your village manager.
Thank you. Trustee Stanton.
I would like to get a breakdown of everything that you're talking about, Jim. I know on page 2 and page,
Which document?
We need to know
this is
stuff.
the second document that deals with the 24 acres.
Okay.
On page 2 and page 7, each says the owner's rights under section 4 of the 2004 annexation agreement and under the 2004 incentive agreements will remain in full force and effect. I have not been given a copy of that, and I certainly would like to get a copy of that as well. And I just want to understand, I think that for the 16-acre parcel, that the 2009 agreement will then terminate the 2004 agreement, or I mean, this agreement terminates not only the 2009 agreement, but also the 2004 agreement? Or there was no 2004 agreement on that parcel?
There was not a 2004 agreement on the 16-acre parcel.
Okay.
This would terminate the 2009 agreement.
Okay. And the only other issue that I have is that we have, was it, I forget the number that we have, was it 2,325 units or something like that?
1,325.
1,325 units. And we don't have an idea as to how these units are going to be on each parcel. I mean, I kind of would like a breakdown and put that into this annexation agreement as far as how many units are going to be on the 16-acre parcel, the 24-acre parcel, and then the 145-acre parcel.
In the interest of full disclosure, that's something we as staff tried to do with the developer. Because of their interest in trying to be responsive to the market and whatever builder came to them on parcels, they didn't want to be, I don't want to answer for you, Mr. Ayatollah or Mr. Norton, maybe you should do it.
Yeah,
But
if you wanna
that they were
come up and
unwilling to
address
do
any of
that,
these.
so they desired the flexibility. That is one of the reasons we put the height in, and while it seems high, it is less than what the TN zoning would allow, but we did that to try to cause it to be staggered. The one thing I would say is that because of how the incentives are from the 2004 agreement, and it's basically what Mark and I just talked about, the sales tax and the property tax, a partial property tax, is that's only on the commercial. And at the time of the 2004, and even still today, more in 2004 though, prior to the recession, there was a goal of not only the 24 acres being developed commercially, but it potentially running along Route 59 further to the north and potentially going across Old Sutton Road onto the 16 acres. That agreement, because it doesn't designate just one parcel it could occur on, it allows it on all three. The 04 did. Kind of encourages commercial development. So that's another reason why they wanted the ability to move density if necessary. But I'll let them speak for themselves.
Go ahead.
Let me take density first. Trying to fix the number of units, Trustee Stanton, let me back up for a second. The 16, the 24, and the 145, now under the documents before you, treat this as a single project as opposed to three separate parcels. So the density that we've arrived at, which is less than the density of right, it should be driven by the marketplace. For us to subscribe to stipulated densities on parcels within, subparcels within an overall assemblage, we'd be back to you with amendment at virtually every stop in here, because we cannot guess beyond what Urban Street has planned for the south end of the project and the density in that area. So to say, for example, and again, remember those neighborhoods that's strictly conceptual. That was a way to try to conceptually develop and understand the site and how it could mass. So to state that there's going to be Y number of units in the northwest corner of the site and in Z number of units in the northeast corner of the site, we'd only be guessing. And in any setting of scale like this in a master planned community, you never see units stipulated to. If the only way we could stipulate to them is because, in fact, we have contracts for all those parcels, and we do not. We have a vibrant marketplace that wants to negotiate now development and building opportunities with us, but the only area under contract is the area to the south where Urban Street is.
How many units do you expect them to have?
There's 253 units right in there. I believe 240 of them are in 7 buildings, and then there's roughly 11 to 13 three-story luxury rentals.
And that's on the 16-acre parcel?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And you would anticipate more on the 24-acre parcel, I would assume, as well as the 145?
Yes. On the 24-acre parcel, we're limited to the area that we can actually build, where we can actually build residential units, and it's all at 6 acres. So we would have the right to build over, much like we do under the existing agreement right now, the right to build over commercial. But and then on the 145, right now, at least virtually all of that piece, we anticipate building out in residential.
Yeah, that's what I expected. I mean, you would expect probably the 250 or whatever you were saying for a 16-acre parcel, probably another, maybe 150 to 200 on the 24-acre parcel with the commercial?
Probably closer to 250 there also, yeah.
And so you're already giving me kind of what you think is going to be in the area. And that's all I'm asking for. I don't need a specific number.
Okay, well, then to be responsive to that, there's roughly 500 and I want to say 20 or 30 acre, 520 or 30 development units conceptually shown on the 16, part of the 16, and then on the 24. The balance of the units are, some of them are on the balance of the 16 acres and the rest are on the 145.
Yeah, I mean, so you really kind of just gave me the answer right now.
Yeah.
It's just not in the agreement.
Yeah.
But Trustee Stan, the concern is that we try to do ranges even, staff did.
Yeah.
That's, in an enforceable agreement, that's a difficult thing. We can have a not to exceed, you could have a minimum and a not to exceed.
I would like to see that.
Okay, that's good direction, thank you.
You know, one of the reasons that we approach this on an project-wide maximum dwelling units is that's the way it would ordinarily be done in a planned development. And the village doesn't have, unfortunately, a planned development ordinance that we are able to follow. So we're trying to create that as much as we can through the 3 agreements, and that's one of the areas that I mentioned before, that these agreements tie the project together as a single master project, as you would see in a planned development ordinance. And that's why we did that.
Okay. There's one other question that I have, and I haven't seen it, but I have heard about it, and that's that there's a a tax incentive for the commercial property that doesn't take effect until such time as all the commercial may be in or something like that, and that,
No, the sales tax agreement that was approved in the 2004 was the same language on the southwest corner, which where Archon is, on the northwest corner.
Okay.
And what it basically says is that at the point in time, they get a certificate of grand opening, which is something we actually wrote back in 2003, 4. I'm not even sure whose attorney came up with that thing. It's not something that existed prior to then. That's when the 15-year window on the sales tax and the property tax agreements that Mark and I just described starts. Now, there is a perpetuity clause that was written in by Goldman Sachs. Archon was a wholly owned subsidiary of Goldman Sachs that was written into those back then, and it was described to us that only if the agreements were challenged or only if some other things happened would it take effect. Corporation Counsel Genera's interpretation is different. We brought that to the attention of Mr. Ayatollah and Mr. Norton, and they're prepared to give that up. That's not something they needed. It's something Archon needed. As I said, a wholly owned subsidiary of Goldman Sachs needed at the time. But so it would be just like what we did on the southwest corner, Trustee Stanton, which is the development agreement's good for 20 years. Anytime during that 20 years when that commercial is developed and occupied with a certificate of grand opening as the trigger, the 15-year rebate window starts.
okay.
And it goes
And is
15
that going to be
years.
put into the,
It's in there now.
It is, okay.
Yes, it is. Well, it's in the actual northwest corner sales tax agreement that was passed in '04. What we're proposing to do is take out the perpetuity language with an amendment that we have as part of a future motion if and when we get to that point,
okay,
or through amending the agreement itself.
sure.
Now, in that also, if a business is getting, causing them to get the tax rebate, and that business goes out of business within that 15-year period, don't we have something within?
Not on this one, Trustee Mills. It's
No?
based on the totality of sales tax on all of them.
Okay.
The Archon sales tax rebate was totally different than what we have traditionally done for a single entity, like we did for Cabela's, like we've done for car dealers. It was totally different. It was meant to allow Goldman Sachs to monetize that development and actually sell interest in it to other parties.
Okay. You done?
Yeah.
Mayor, you had something?
Yeah, what's, what's the duration of this agreement? There was one in 2004, one in 2009. What's the duration be if it's passed?
The duration on all these agreements is 20 years.
So the 04, 09, which had a period where it did extend beyond, it'll start all over again.
Yes, sir, that's true, and that's what has occurred on all the Beverly Properties agreements in the past. That's what happened on other ones that the village has done in the past. Of course, the board can change that.
Start all over effective today, not at the natural end of those
Right.
agreements.
Because those agreements do have years to run left on them.
Mike? Trustee?
It seems
Cato.
that there's an awful lot of questions, right? And yet it's up for a vote tonight. Corporate Counsel, can we extend that maybe another 2 weeks or 3 weeks until we can get all of the answers to satisfy not only the trustees, but the mayor and so forth?
Yes, the board has the ability to pass any of these matters on whatever dates they set it to consider the matters. The answer is yes. You can move
We can do
things
whatever.
around, whatever you wish.
Well, I'd like to make a motion, right? Maybe to
You have a
postpone.
motion, you have a motion on the floor already.
Which one is that?
You
To approve.
did a motion to approve.
Your motion and my second.
Can a motion to approve?
Okay, well, can I amend that motion?
Either that or you rescind it.
Rescind it? I'd like to rescind that motion then.
Does
And
these-
who seconded it?
Trustee
I
Bowles.
seconded it.
You agree with that?
Well, I don't disagree with it, but I was kind of hoping we'd be able to move on. And I agree with you, Trustee Gated, that there's a number of questions,
Yes.
but it'd be my preference to get through at least PB and Z. And if there was an extension, it would be between the committee and board. You know what I mean? Because tonight they're both on the agenda at the same time. So if there was any, deferral,
What-
I'd assume.
Can I put in a suggestion, gentlemen? Why don't we finish with the questions first, then we can decide what motion we want to hold? Whether we take this one, you take this one off, or you start a new one, or whatever, okay? Why don't we get all the questions out in the open?
Okay,
So if there is a continuance, at least staff knows what we're looking for. Agree?
okay.
That
I
would be
agree with
very
that.
appreciated.
Yeah. Trustee Newell?
Okay. On that note, I like the highlighter and I like the tab.
There she
So I will
is.
show you, just taking this home, as the
She
mayor
did
had
read it.
said. Some of us read it, some of us did not. My highlighter ran out. I have a lot of questions and I don't know if I can bring them up. I don't want to hog everybody's
No,
time.
please do.
But it's some other things that some people may have not brought up, but as you're going through this, parking was brought up. It brought up the question of what is the future going to be like? Are we going to be like the Jetsons? Are we going to be the electric? Are we going to be having posts where we plug in our cars? Are we going to be hybrids? Are we not? Is everybody going to be on a bicycle? We don't know. But when you take a look at this concept plan and you take a look at all these buildings, where are you going to park if there are cars? Whether they're electric, whether you're walking, you have bicycles, I mean, are they going to be underground? The garages say that they face the alleys. The alleys are supposed to only be thoroughways. They're not supposed to be parking there. So where are you going to put all this besides all the people and all these buildings that are supposedly, I guess, like zero lot lines? So the question came up, are one car, two car, what are we doing with all of it? That's, I don't know.
If you can have someone come up, have them identify themselves to answer it.
Give your name, please.
My name's Kirk Bishop, principal with Duncan Associates, planning consultant as part of the team. Both the CMU and TN districts, as well as your village zoning ordinance in general, establish minimum parking ratios for the non-residential and residential components in the CMU and the TN district respectively, all the parcels that have been described tonight. In the case of single-family dwellings, it's fully anticipated those are going to be garage spaces, many of which are going to be accessed from alleys. Pursuant to negotiations with staff, there are prohibitions on driveways from the street to sort of preserve the streetscape and to ensure adequate access to those parking spaces for the larger buildings. I'm sure it will be a combination of surface parking, I think from some of the images, particularly for the non-residential and stacked to live above units. You'll have some surface parking, some will be in buildings in the structure, either below at ground level or, raised parking. But the bottom line is that minimum parking requirements are established and full compliance will be anticipated as part of the village's review of actual development requests, which really aren't on the table tonight.
Staff, correct me if I'm wrong, but multi-housing, attached housing has to have a minimum two-car garage, correct? Okay,
That's correct.
all right, and single families,
Same.
minimum two-car,
Minimum 2-car.
okay. So all that would be required to begin with?
Yes.
There's no deviation from that, okay.
So that's the standard that's
Right,
set.
but that doesn't address the apartment building areas.
Right.
And we don't assume that there's any change in mode of transportations. We assume
Right.
that at
And-
least for the next X number of years, people will have cars, and as does our code.
Right, but my thought was, because I'm reading this and I'm talking about like sustainability, and you start talking about green, and then, everybody's talking about poles and plugging in, what are we doing? So I was just putting that out there.
The
Okay?
issue, Trustee Newell, if I could, the issue of whether or not the developer or builders put in charging stations, for example, would be something that comes when they come to the next detailed level of plans for each individual neighborhood. And the actual, when we actually know the housing units that they are, as they've talked about.
Okay. But it's just something I was thinking about as you're reading through this. So, another thing that they had mentioned, that there is a railroad there.
Would any of this housing be like reinforced for the sound, for the so-called vibrations, anything that's going to be close to the railroad? Is it going to be done at the time that you're building, or, anything like that?
And that question came up at the Plan Commission meeting also, and I think what will likely happen is that the builder who builds in that location will have to satisfy the village at that time that adequate noise reduction opportunities or alternatives are provided. And I would expect if they're going to market the housing along the railroad tracks, they'll have to do that from a market standpoint, if not a regulatory.
Okay. That's all I have for now.
Thank you. Mayor?
I can make a suggestion. We did get these documents. They're 390 pages. I don't know that anybody really has been able to adequately examine them all. Why don't we kick this over, give everybody a chance to go through it again, so when everybody can come up with all the questions they have, and we can answer them all.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure staff's got the opportunity to address some of them, too. If there's some other questions that are
I
involved.
think we can probably send them the questions.
Okay, well. Anybody else want to say anything at this point?
Madam Chairperson?
Yes.
We would just like to get, if there are questions, as many of them out tonight so that we can be responsive to you and work with staff to address them.
Okay. One thing I would see, since it sounds like we're going to be coming back, one question that I would like to see too is a little bit more of an explanation on the maximum heights for the various areas. What type of housing are we allowing because of those heights? So that would be something that staff could put together.
I'll be really, absolutely, and they can be taken out. Because we heard so much from the community about the fact that there is no exact plan. The attempt was, and I'll be honest, it was my suggestion, is to try by height to show that the density would actually decrease going from south to north. It didn't have the desired effect, obviously, because the heights that were put in, while well underneath what the TN zoning district would allow, still cause concern about the actual height. But when you look at the illustrations that were shown, they're significantly lower than any of those in most instances. The only ones that appeared to be close were the ones that were around the center circle. From my standpoint, the apartments were all 4 to 5 stories tall, 5 to 6 maybe.
Yeah, the apartments
Okay.
are 5 to 6.
And they're the tallest.
Yep.
Yet, the parcels A and B, which are up on the northern end, well, the height put in was 58 feet.
Right.
That didn't have the desired impact. So I think when you combine, if we're able to be, and get the developer to be responsive to Trustee Stanton's request, which is number of units, that whole height thing can come out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we still want to make sure that we're not getting, that we're kind of keeping certain elements of buildings in certain areas. And I think that was something that you were looking for originally, so I'd like to still see something
Okay.
regarding that. Anything else that that anyone wishes to address up here? Trustee Palafis?
Just speaking for myself, I didn't have any problem cutting through 390 pages. If I did, I'm not sure I could have showed up here tonight. So it's just, whether it was that or 1,000, it was our duty to get through them. Was it unfortunate that, I had out-of-town family in over a holiday weekend? Yeah, a little. But, I got up early or stayed up late to motor through. I don't know if I would have any more questions a week from now or 2 weeks or a month than I do right now. In 2009, we voted on one of the sections. In 2007, when we got elected, I read about what you guys voted on in 2004, which I'm assuming, some of the questions that were asked tonight had answers about financial implications and the draw, and, answered, the measurement of how we manage. So really, the only thing different is the 145 acres, which was actually spoken about in the pre-annexation agreement wherever that falls, legally or conceptually, is really the only thing different. And in terms of density, I mean, not to boil it down to the dumbest level of math, it sounds like it's kind of like 500, 500, 250. Maybe I'm way out there on that math, but I don't see this as anything really new. I see it as something that you guys started 13 or 14 years ago that I had all expectations of getting through part of it, at least tonight. I'm not against waiting. I'm just saying that, speaking for me personally, I'm not sure how much more due diligence I could add to it. That hasn't been the case. And I speak for myself, who many of you emailed. I've met with a lot of you. I've met with 220's board more than I have some of you. I've seen Mayor McCombie more than I've seen Mayor McLeod in the last 2 months, and that's nothing against the mayor. He doesn't hide from me. But in full collaboration, I don't think I personally could benefit. Maybe others can, an extended amount of time. Regarding for my questions are more directed, if I had any, to Mike Jaffe, because he had a parcel that was literally right across the street, and he probably drove that project through one of the toughest points in history. So I think if there's anybody smarter in the room about what has been compared to what could be or should be, it might be him. And I know you're an investor, so you might be jaded or slighted towards saying, what you would regarding your investment. But really, those are the only questions I would really have, more of a conceptual, philosophical base. I think the progress made in the last couple of weeks regarding a school property has been good. It might not be perfect or ideal or exactly what the final outcome will be. I think density has come down. And when I read the 2004 agreement, what you all did back then, it was aggressive, and I understand it was to get Target in. There was a very short fuse before that thing blew up and didn't come. So I get it. And in 2009, we've been talking about the corner for a long time. And then, the succession from Barrington Hills, it wasn't, we've all been keeping track of that as this project has progressed. So, in short, I'm not in favor of kicking it out. And I'm not being argumentative towards the mayor's position. I just don't know how much more blood I could spill over this.
Thank you. Any other things from up here? It does look like.
Madam,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Madam
Go
Chairperson.
ahead.
And I want to be respectful of everybody's schedule, and we want to, if you have questions, we want to answer them. We want to provide you with the answers. At the same time, we've spent a lot of time educating this board and and staff and the Plan Commission. We'd like to see if we could work through this process towards getting a decision by the end of this month. If we worked our way backwards from the end of the month, we'd be willing to have a public workshop here a week from tonight. If anybody could come and ask their questions or deliver them to staff, and staff could deliver them to us, and I assume that would be an open meeting if there was a majority of a quorum in attendance. That way, if we could get the questions, and that gives us another week after that to satisfy everybody, and come back here 2 weeks from tonight. Now, I know that's not, I don't think that's your regular meeting night, so I want to be respectful.
2 weeks from tonight would be.
Would be May 1st.
Okay.
May 1st, yeah.
I'm not sure that it can all be done that fast, and I understand where their request. I'm just not sure it can be done that fast. I'm not sure we have the extent of the full questions. Maybe next week is a good idea. We have 3 committees already that night. Maybe this is added on and we can get more of the questions. But the ability to work on the agreements to the point they need be to address some of the concerns that even been raised tonight is going to be.
We are at your disposal. We'll attend the workshop tomorrow. if that's what it takes. And
Can't notice it fast.
Yeah, we need 48 hours, you know that?
it's true.
Attorney General would come after us.
Yeah.
And it's not quite an emergency, but
No,
it's.
no, not
But
quite.
we will,
Unless you
we are at your
continued it.
disposal to answer your questions.
Yes, Mr. Attorney.
The, having from time to time worked with staff and the developers, it is probably important that some fashion, whether it be at an open meeting or whether it be by way of the trustees marking down questions or areas of concern they might have, it is important that that type of input be produced. And of course, the reason for that is if this board, sitting in its body, has interests in specific areas of these agreements and believes that certain areas should be addressed, we've got to some way bring that up and get that known to staff and legal, so that we can then proceed with the board's wishes to ensure that these type of matters are at least worked out with our words and how it fits into an agreement. So therefore, Madam Chairman, all I'm saying is, if it does get moved out, I think we have to decide whether that's going to be a question and answer, a further question and answer forum, when after the trustees have a chance to look at it, can express their ideas at that time, or whether it's going to be done in writing. However, we should try to determine at some point in time in the future, whatever it is this committee chooses, that we have either verbally or in writing something that we can work with.
This group is not shy
Yeah.
about calling or emailing me with questions typically. So we've heard a lot from the committee members tonight. If you have others tonight, please let us know now.
How about this? We set a deadline of Wednesday to get back to you with questions.
That's fine, or whatever.
Does everybody agree with that?
But my suggestion would be that this go to another PB&Z meeting, Trustee Mills, a week from tonight.
tonight.
And we see where we are, and then we
Yes.
the board can decide where they want to go next.
Sounds like a plan to me. First thing I would, does that, the petitioner understand now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
First thing I would ask for is to rescind your original motion.
I will rescind my original motion.
And will the
Second.
second maker also say that?
Begrudgingly, I do.
Okay. Do we vote on that then? No.
It's
Okay.
nothing to vote on, we were saying.
All right, I would then entertain a motion to set a special PB&Z meeting next Monday evening to further discuss this project. Is that
At the conclusion of the other committees.
at the conclusion of the other committees? Yes, because we have three other committees.
I'll make a motion to continue.
We're going to, there.
I'll make a motion to continue
To a date certain.
to
next
the date certain of next week, that we reconvene this discussion upon the completion of the other three published committees.
Okay.
I'll second that.
That sound like what legally you want? Okay.
No, I'm not legal.
I know you're not.
He's legal. Blame him for that. I'm process. I like to dabble in legal.
Yeah. You went to Holiday Inn Express last night, right? Mayor, you had something?
So this is a special planning, building, and zoning
is.
committee
Yes.
meeting next week.
To further discuss the rest of these items tonight. And it's hard to say if a vote will be taken that night or not at the conclusion. So that would stand to be seen. Not to,
What about what Jim says? Does anybody else want to ask any other questions?
yeah, that's what I was just going to do. Okay? Before we vote on the motion, we've heard from a lot of you this evening earlier. I would ask if you have specific question, and truthfully, we know a lot of how the feelings are out here. But if you have a concrete question you want us to have brought up, if you could please quickly come forward and give us your name and address and ask your question, we would appreciate it. And again, as I said, we are not trying to not listen to all of you, but we did hear a lot earlier.
Kieran Tamburni again. If it's okay with you, I'd just like to put my questions in writing, and would I transmit them to
Perfect.
Mr. Norris?
Yes,
And he'll get them
Mr.
to
Norris.
you folks?
Sure.
You
Good.
could get into them by midweek, okay?
You said Wednesday, so.
Yes, I
sure.
did.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And please understand, these are questions from a policy standpoint for the board. I will take the audience's questions. I am, to be very direct, I'm more concerned about getting the agreements to where the board wants them than answering questions from the public about what's in the agreements. But Tom, we've known each other
I
more
think-
years than I had hair, so, please, everybody,
I
please
think-
send
I
the
think I'll be on
questions,
point
but
with what you
it's
want.
really about what's in the agreements
Right.
for the committee that I'm gonna be trying to address.
Correct. It's
And,
gonna- go
and
ahead.
one other thing, just for the purposes for the audience, as I've stated tonight, this is not a specific plan showing X number here, there, and everything. These are still concept plans. Correct me if I don't want to be the legal guy in this
No,
one either.
Mr. Norton said it exactly right. Our village does not have a planned unit development ordinance.
Right.
We use development agreements in lieu of the planned unit development. This is a concept level plan that gives no development shovel in the ground authority at all. It just says, at some point in time, when you come in with specific site plans, plats, renderings and everything for an individual parcel, then you'll be considered for actual development approval and the ability ultimately to build.
And as each of those as developmental areas come in, they would have to have their
There is a
traffic-
master traffic study now.
But there would be specific ones?
Every single parcel comes in has to update it specifically based upon that subdivision, that area's impact on the traffic plan.
Okay, just
Yes,
wanted to
ma'am.
get that out there.
That's when the environmental impacts are done, that's when the Northern Cook County Soil and Water Conservation stuff is done. That's how our code says it has to be
And
done.
Ms. Mills, just in terms of meeting this aggressive schedule, could we be exempt from the Freedom of Information Act with respect to our requests for the traffic
Sure.
study and the 2004 and the 2009 agreement and this pre-annexation agreement, some of the other things I mentioned that I'll put in the letter,
Within specific limits, I would think, correct?
related to this project?
The form,
It really has more to do with our staff time to get the documents ready. We do have some of them that have recently been gathered up. My suggestion would be that we would probably, why don't you get Attorney Cross's number? And
Cross, you want to-
somebody else gets to have some fun.
Tom Cross is here?
Get more done here
Jeff
than
Cross.
that.
Attorney Patricia Cross.
Okay.
And she's here, and then she'll get it to her and myself, and we'll see what we can do to get
That
those.
are mentioned in the annexation agreement, so it's not having you delve into the archives, I don't think.
Send an email to either Patty or myself, and we'll try to do our best to get it to you.
Thank you very much, I took too much time.
Thank you.
All right, yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, I'm Joel Koenig of 1780 Ridgewood Lane. I am a resident of Hoffman Estates, also reside in the 220 School District. I don't plan on talking about the specifics of the development tonight. I just ask, as you go through the review of the development agreement, and I'm not as efficient with my highlighter as Trustee Newell, so I only went through one of these, and I think there's some similarity and commonality to all these. But within the development agreement, it discusses the school district. I would ask, as we do not have a specific plan here, and we saw some concept plans here, there is some there is a division line between the School District 300 and School District 220. For those of you who are in the northern part of our community, we are aware of the multi-jurisdictional overlap of the various districts. So as a resident of this community, I ask that we engage through your development agreement, require, I hope, the engagement of the school districts early enough before these land plans are set so that we do not have unduly burdensome jurisdictional boundaries. Now, I don't know how this will come out. I mean, school districts are complicated, but I ask that you consider that at this point, because we do not want to have half of a building in one school district and half in another, and just a couple of units in one school district so that the buses have to come to it. I think there's a logic here, and I think engaging our school districts early in this process through this development agreement would be healthy.
We don't have the ability to dictate that,
And I don't
correct?
think Mr. Koenig's saying that. We've already had discussions with Superintendent Harris, Superintendent Hyde, and myself, and some of their staffs and board members have talked about the age-old Illinois issue that the school boundaries are set eons ago. They don't line up with anything except sometimes township lines. It's not like other communities where they line up exactly with the municipality or with the county lines. And that in Illinois, what can happen if a building is built and it's on the line, they have to determine by survey where the bedroom is. And you could ultimately potentially have kids from the same house going to two different schools.
Yes, sir.
That's Illinois, okay? That's not 220, that's not 300, and that's not the village. And the developer's aware of that, and they have pledged to us to do their very best to take that line, which is basically a straight across bisecting line, and do the very best they can. There is not language in the agreement. We can look at to some extent
So the
what
board
we
members are
can.
aware, there is history in this community of, I believe it was, it wasn't 220 at the time. It was a precursor district before it was a unit district. There was a slice of the grade school district that was just south of the tollway, and it was detached went into 54, if memory serves me correct. So there's a history here, there's a logic here. I don't know the mechanics of how that happened, but as a taxpayer, and I know as you as legislators, this would make sense, and I would ask that you would take that into consideration as you're reviewing these documents. I don't have a recommended language here. I'm going to defer to better minds on that. The other item I asked, and I just quickly reviewed the development agreement in section 10. It talks about connection, impact, building permit, and other fees. It talks about the school fees in paragraph 2, then refers back to the village ordinance. Our village ordinance sets one fee structure. I'm sure you'll hear from representatives of the 220 school district how other communities within the school district have higher contribution limits. I'll leave that decision with you, but what concerns me here is the following on paragraph D, additional fees, no special assessments. It talks about limiting the fees that are charged to this to nothing other than it's throughout the rest of the village. So if there is a decision to have a higher impact fee, again, I'm not an attorney and I don't want to pretend to understand all of this, but it would seem that there's limitations on adjusting it for just this area. So I ask that that be considered in greater detail.
And I've started to call you Joel, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We've known each other a long time. Mr. Koenig, the reality is in every annexation agreement the village has had, that language exists to allow that once they're assessed, they're known. Because when a builder comes in, I'm not talking the current owners, but when they sell to a builder and they're starting to create their pro forma, they want to know what the costs are. And they don't want to worry about the village raising a fee or doing something 3 years, 5 years in it. So the village has, and frankly, every village I've worked for ever has done it that way. It's to give that balance. And remember, there is a quid pro quo to an annexation. It's the property owner will bring their property into the village if the village considers doing certain things, but the village ultimately gets the benefit long range of that property being in and the taxability, the taxes generated, and those types of things. So when the village made the decision in 2004 that this village really wanted the southwest and the northwest corners, we actually made concessions then that carry through today as part of that contract, that quid pro quo, to cause the owner to actually bring those properties into our community. So I don't see that changing.
Well, there are two school districts there. There are two school districts that have different cost structures. One can only wonder if the fee that's currently in our ordinance would be sufficient to offset the impacts, and it would just seem that a further examination of that clause be worthy. And since you're taking the time to examine that, I leave that with you. I know the hour's late. I know there are wise eyes on this development, and I thank you very much for your time, and good night.
Thank you, Mr. Koenig. Anyone else have another question they wish to quickly put on the record?
My name is Dr. Stagno. I live in South Barrington, and I'm a trustee also in the South Barrington. I've been an obstetrician for 42 years, so when we talk about conceptions tonight, I think I have a good amount of special training and experience about conceptions. And I have not had a chance to read 300 or 4. I'm one of the people that do try to read them all. I think all of you appreciate the concept that you have fiduciary duty to the village and the residents. Which also includes businessmen here, but businessmen are in business, and the idea is not to, like what you have to do, where the interest of your residents or the interest of my patients come before my own. With the business, it's caveat emptor, buyer beware. And it was striking to hear the residents speaking about what they thought and what was going on, just the tone of their voice, and the investors with the tone of their voice about how great this project was going to be. My only comment was, and I apologize, I haven't read the 400 pages, I'm not sure what's going on there, but we saw a lot of pretty pictures, all of them conceptions, okay? But they seem to be 3-story, 4-story, whatever on there, yet it seems like the agreement gives way more than what's shown there. Now, if that's the conceptions, being that's the general plan, then the agreement should allow for having those type of structures be built, but not to give 120 feet elevation and the space for schools, for example. The school that they showed, that looked like was maybe 5 stories high. I don't know if you can have a grammar school 5 stories high. There was a track and field, but to me it seems like it looks nice. The conception is good, but the nitty-gritty is something else. And I would strongly urge the board to allow what they think is fine, but not to go way above it. And if there's a conception, that's what they're asking for. No need to give way, way more.
Is there any specific questions you'd like to have them address?
Well, I would like to take a look at the 300. So if there's some place you maybe can put it on the website or whatever,
It is.
that would be great. Thank
It's
you.
on the website already.
Since Friday,
Since Thursday.
Thursday.
First, I'd like to thank the village board this evening for your due diligence in this conversation. I think it's very important and a lot of questions to be answered. I have 2 very specific questions related to the school site. I do appreciate the developer and that consideration. We have had lots of discussions about that. Good to see. I hadn't seen it till tonight. Again, I think that begs the question, how much conversation needs to take place? I think a lot more. That being said, I would ask 2 questions. How does this site compare to other Hoffman Estates school sites? 5 acres. I think you will find, and I don't know, way smaller. In our district, all of our elementary sites are on 9 acres or above, except for one site that's been in that location since the 1800s, right in the center of town. So I encourage you to investigate that, find out what your other elementary school sites are, and the amount of property. And also, any legal implications. I encourage you to explore that, where the school site is located. Again, I haven't seen it. I watched it on the video. Located at the railroad tracks. I do believe there are specific restrictions there. I encourage you to take a look at that to make sure that that's appropriate. And also height restrictions that was mentioned by the gentleman before me. All of those things have school code, very specific restrictions. And I think in concept, again, it looks right. There's a lot of detail there when it comes to school site regulations. So I encourage you to investigate all those. I can assure you we will. Thank you.
Thank you. Legitimate questions.
That's not ours. Not our questions.
I just have a couple of questions that should only take about 20 minutes.
We're going to put you on a timer here.
One is, as far as parking, again, I believe that in parts of Hoffman Estates, there's prohibitions on parking overnight on the street.
No.
I believe I've seen, there
Only with
isn't?
snow removal.
Only
Only
during
when there's snow removal issues.
Okay, well, I'm just reiterating that I think in some of the more congested areas, you're going to have quite a bit of street parking.
Well,
and
that
so
was why I brought up
The board
that
would have
question,
to
yes.
address that issue pretty intently, I would
We
think.
only allow parking typically on one side of the street. It's regulated in our code depending on whether you're an east-west street or north-south street.
And the other thing, we've heard a lot of talk about rooftops and building this community to serve the benefit of retail and everything. I just wonder if some of it might be out of sync with the type of retail. The Arboretum is somewhat upscale, and if the housing is not up there, it's not really benefiting that one that much. And then the other center, the crossings, is pretty middle and upper middle scale. And so you might be undershooting the market. If that's part of the goal here, to create more shoppers, the housing should be more consistent with the shopping.
Thank you. Last chance. Okay. I got to have you come to the microphone and give us your name, please.
Alejandra Costa, and my questions were raised by my superintendent, but I have a couple more. Middle schools, high schools.
Into the microphone, into the microphone.
Middle schools, high schools, is there any planning for that?
No.
In a large concept like this?
No.
That would be something the school district would have
I
to
mean-
determine, correct?
Right.
I'm just asking the questions because as a public and
Right.
just, I don't know, I don't speak your language, and it's the first time that I've seen the drawings. Initially, we were told that there would be no school inside, but today I just saw a picture of a pretty school along a train track, pretty high, K through 8. I don't know if the chief will agree that in an emergency, how will that look? Kindergartners emergency. I don't know. I'm just a mom of two.
That would be up to your school district. to make
Right, so
that
let me just, the developer provided an illustration, a picture. That doesn't mean that's what will be built. Obviously, the dialogue has to occur between typically the dialogue occurs between the owner, builder, and the school district, and the village actually isn't even really engaged in it. We tell them that we prefer them to be able to come to an agreement on their own and then bring that agreement to the village. In this case, we have, because there initially was a TIF, we were engaged, so we stayed engaged, and I'm guessing we'll continue to stay engaged because of the questions that are being asked. But the village cannot mandate multiple school sites. Okay?
Thank you.
Yes.
In closing, in 2004, with Mayor McLeod leading the Board of Trustees, we annexed 2 corners into the village and sought to establish rights and responsibilities on the 145-acre parcel. That was considerable work that culminated in an annexation. Then, in a couple weeks later, Archon proposed a site plan for what is now Poplar Creek Crossing. We collectively, the development team and staff, had stayed clearly within the spirit of what was agreed upon. The relief that we requested, whether it was a lot width or a multifamily unit size, was met by guidelines being converted into standards. And I urge you, Anna, to look carefully at that zoning district along with those guidelines and standards. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it in any of the villages who, or either the constituents or the leaders who have spoken before you today. Nothing like it. We stayed within the spirit of it, and I'm hopeful that you don't forget the spirit of what took place and what is of right. And we're going to be here to answer your questions. This is a setting where we know it is a practical impossibility to please everybody on everything, especially, Mike, when you have 3 different ideologically villages that converge at that intersection. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Itrola. All right, we do have a motion on the floor. Oh. Yes, did you have something, a specific question?
I have a specific question.
Okay.
That I think it would be beneficial for the committee and board to get more specificity related to how these housing units, how many housing units will qualify for low-income housing, and the extent to which economic benefit flows to the developers for those housing units, and from the school districts to clarify the impact of special needs related to low-income housing development. Thank you.
Thank you. Pardon? Oh, yes.
There's,
Mr. Norton.
our plans are for all housing to be market rate housing. not low-income housing.
You want to explain that for them?
That there would not be, none of the housing would be operated through an affordable housing program. Through a low-income housing program. We believe the housing will be affordable in a generic sense, but this is not going to be Section 8 housing or anything similar to that.
Okay. The motion, as I recall, way back when, was that we would continue this meeting to a special meeting next Monday evening, which is the 24th, I believe, following the other 3 committee meetings. Yeah.
Our normal process is to adjourn the meeting and just call a special PB&Z
Well, that's what I
immediately
thought, but
following.
someone had said
This
up
is
here-
not a public hearing that needs to be continued.
Thank you. All right. So then we would just be planning the motion then, and you guys can agree with me or not,
Just set a special
is set a
plan
special meeting for next Monday evening to discuss these items.
immediately following the other committees.
Yeah.
I'll modify my motion to just adjourn and go through the normal route of setting
This one.
a special meeting.
Okay, and I believe, Mike,
I'll
you
second
seconded
it,
that?
yes.
Thank you. Any other questions up here on the board? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of the special meeting next week signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. It will be continued next week. Now we will continue on with our agenda for this evening. Item number 5, request approval of Barrington Square Town Center TIF reimbursement request number 4 in the amount of $9,002,544.97.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions? Mayor?
We're not writing a check, are we?
I'm not signing it, are you?
No,
Good.
no, not until the TIF
TIF
funds are
generates that
available.
money.
Trustee Palafis?
So, and 2,544.97
Folks, if you're going to have questions, I ask you to please go out in the lobby. We still have a meeting to conduct. Thank you. I'm sorry, Trustee Palafis, you were saying?
That's right. It's a little over 9 million is being requested for approval when only 5.6 million is being issued. Is that because of the reduction or the percentage of payout compared to?
Why don't they explain it? Go ahead. Please, I'm sorry, Karen.
That
That's
is,
quite all right.
that is the way
I've
the
lost
original
control
development
tonight.
agreement was structured, to require the developer, the owners, to invest in the property. So the.
Excuse me, gentlemen. Mr. Anderson?
Come on, guys.
If you could please take your questions out in the lobby. We still have a meeting to conduct. Thank you. Yes, please go ahead.
So the original redevelopment agreement for Barrington Square was structured to require and encourage the owners to invest in the property for certain improvements. Some of those improvements would qualify for TIF reimbursement. Stuff that was not TIF eligible would still allow them to increase the amount that they were eligible for, but not to that total project cost. So vertical development, the new McDonald's, those costs are not TIF eligible. But because they spent that money, they're able to capture a greater percentage of costs that are TIF eligible.
So no funds are actually being remitted.
No.
We have.
It's just what's being qualified.
It's what's the
Okay.
TIF note. And then
Right.
if and when TIF revenues are available, and I think there are some funds, not nearly to the 5.5 million, are in the TIF fund, we will remit those, but that's only $100,000, less than $100,000? $66,000. So once this TIF note is modified, we will remit that to the developer and deduct that from the note. And
Okay.
Kind of lost me, if I may ask a question. I mean, you have $18,838,876 or $877. Of that, only $5,651,613.13 is remitted.
is eligible to be
Is eligible
remitted.
Is now considered an eligible expense.
Okay.
Okay, so as Mark explained. and I'll-
Ineloquently.
He said ineloquently. The way the agreement
hard,
was
I guess.
structured is that the developer, the owner, Deshau, actually gets a higher level of TIF eligibility benefit as they invest more money. So they're at the 5 million mark now. Well, that's not a payout because the TIF hasn't generated until, frankly, something replaces Menards. They may not ever see that dollar amount, but they issue a TIF note that says they're due to be paid that amount if and when the TIF generates. It's a pay-as-you-go TIF. And as our finance director just told Mark, basically $66,000 is going to them this year, and that's it.
Okay.
But sometime in the future, they could be reimbursed up to that if the increment's ever generated.
Yeah, I understand now. Okay.
Okay.
And overall, the redevelopment agreement capped the total amount they could be reimbursed at $9 million. So even though they've already spent $18 million, they will only ever recover up to $9 million.
I think we should point out that the village also had expenses eligible in that TIF as well for improvements on Hassel Road and other things off the backside of the center, and we do get a payment as well.
Okay.
Are we paid up front? For them?
No, it's a
We're
split.
split.
Okay. Okay.
Until we get our dollar amount.
Okay. Any other questions on this? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Number 6, request acceptance of Department of Development Services monthly report for Planning Division.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Anything you wish to highlight this evening?
Nothing.
Thank you. I'm glad. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Number 7, request acceptance of Department of Development Services monthly report for Code Enforcement Division.
So moved.
Second.
Anything to highlight on code enforcement?
Nothing there either.
Okay. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. And number 8, request acceptance of Department of Development Services monthly report for Economic Development and Tourism.
So moved.
Second.
Anything you wish to highlight on that, Mr. Kramer? I see you shaking your head. Nope. Okay. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. President's report.
I'll wait for the board meeting.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Is there anything else to come before this committee this evening? Seeing none, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. My apologies go out to the Planning and Zoning Committee that has been sitting here all evening. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. We are finally adjourned.
I know. Turn the air back on.
Yeah, we need to turn the air back on.
Good night. What?
They're going to reissue us all.
God, I hope not. We got so much
Just
now.
keep what you get.
Okay, I'd like to reconvene the board meeting of April 17th. Can you call the roll to reestablish the quorum?
Trustee Palafis.
Present.
Trustee Stanton.
Still here.
Trustee Gata.
Present.
Trustee Vandenberg.
Present.
Trustee Mills.
Yeah, I should have called in sick, but I'm here.
Trustee Newell.
Present.
Mayor McLeod.
Present. Move on to item number 3, recognition of the audience. I recognize most of you, actually.
Glad you're all here.
Yeah.
Seeing no one wanting to speak, we'll move on.
Whoop, whoop, we got somebody over
Oh, you
here.
have somebody here. Oh, okay. Give us your name and address for the record, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Megan Zastani. I live on 4100 North Parkside Drive, Hoffman Estates. I'm also a 220 parent. I just had a question about all that stuff that just happened. I'm hearing all this stuff about annexation. Has it actually been annexed from an unincorporated to Hoffman Estates? And it's just the 145-acre parcel that hasn't been annexed yet? Okay, because I'm trying to get used to this legalese stuff.
Don't do it. It's a bad idea.
Was that up for a vote to become
Yes.
And is the hesitation to annex it due to all the backlash from 220 and the concerned citizens?
No, I think. In part, yeah, but I think the
Yes.
board actually has concerns also, in addition to 220 and residents.
Okay, and then provided it gets annexed into Hoffman Estates, is the next step to combine the 16, 24, and 145 acres all into one project?
They're treating it as a
Actually,
Seems to be logical
actually
that-
on this agenda, there is a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve a plat that would actually it'd be one big parcel, but into 3 lots.
Okay, that
Okay?
makes sense.
Okay, so that would do that, but that probably won't get acted on tonight because since everything has been
Delayed
pushed a
for the
week.
next
Matter of
week.
fact, I don't know that anything's going to be
That'll
acted
go
on
to the
tonight.
next board meeting, which is
Right.
2
May-
weeks.
May
The
1st.
May 1st board meeting.
Right.
Okay, so we'll basically be all back here again for that meeting?
If you want to, we'll be back here too.
Okay.
I think the other thing, and I can't speak for the individual board members, that's not what I do, but from the board members that have talked to me, it's not, the annexation isn't so much the issue. Okay? It's whether it's the lack of detail on the plan, it's the overall density on the plan. It's not whether or not we really want the land in Hoffman Estates. At least it hasn't been in the past. And again, the mayor, he
I
has his
think
own comments.
everybody on the board wants to annex the property. That's not a problem. It's just the conditions of what the development's going to be.
Right. It's the details of what is allowed after it's annexed.
Okay, so right now it's just zoned for that commercial mixed use, and it needs to be
No, right now it's
changed?
not zoned for anything in the village.
Anything, okay.
It's zoned
Okay.
It's an
agricultural.
unincorporated
excuse
Cook
me.
County.
I think you're asking, the 24-acre
Is the-
corner that's in the
That's
village and the
commercial mixed
16-acre
use.
that's in the village are
Commercial
already
mixed use.
zoned commercial mixed use.
Right.
The other part, the proposal is to annex the other parcel and then zone it traditional neighborhood.
Okay,
Right.
and that's where people are concerned about what is a traditional neighborhood in quotes.
And the density that might entail and the number of school children that might get produced.
Got it. Okay, those are,
Of conception.
that's my only question. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay,
for
thank
the
you.
work
Sticking
you've been
around.
doing.
And a little humor.
Okay, anyone else? If not, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the April 3rd, 2017 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Same.
Okay, note the one abstention. Move on to consent agenda, omnibus vote. Chair
So
accept
moved.
a motion.
Second.
There's a motion, there's a second. This is to approve the agenda and approve the schedule of bills amounting to $3,363,169.63. Can you call the roll, Madam Clerk?
It's boiling in here.
Can you push the button on? Trustee Palafis.
Aye.
Trustee Stanton.
Aye.
Trustee Gata.
Aye.
Trustee Vandenberg.
Aye.
Trustee Mills.
Aye.
Trustee Newell.
Aye.
Mayor McLeod.
Aye, motion carried. Move on to 6th President's Report. We did the presentations already. We have a couple of proclamations. Who's got the first one?
Yeah, I get the first one, which is Office of the Mayor Proclamation. Whereas humankind is currently facing tremendous global challenges affecting every community, including large-scale migration, extreme inequality and poverty, degradation of ecosystems, mass extinction of species, and global climate change. And whereas all people of this earth, no matter of their race, gender, income, sexual orientation, or national origin, have a right to a healthy environment, and whereas the youth of the world are our most valuable resource and represent a source of endless creativity and potential, and whereas it is necessary for the citizens of our global community to develop green jobs and to build an innovative and equitable green economy to combat the aforementioned global challenges. And whereas expanding environmental education and climate literacy is vital to enhance awareness about the environment, inform decision-making, and protect future generations. And whereas it is understood that sustainability will only be achieved by meeting the needs of the present without compromising the needs of future generations. Whereas it is more important than ever to act locally and to cooperate internationally and defend the environmental progress that has been heretofore gained. And whereas Earth Day is an annual reminder of the constant need for environmental activism, stewardship commitments, and sustainability efforts. Be it therefore resolved that William D. McLeod, acting under and by the virtue of the authority vested in him by the Constitution of the State of Illinois and the laws of this village of Hoffman Estates, hereby proclaims Saturday, April 22nd, 2017, as Earth Day in the village of Hoffman Estates, and urge all Hoffman Estates residents and businesses to join in its observance.
Chair will accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Hope everybody does celebrate Earth Day on Saturday. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Yeah, Joe Nebel.
Wake up, Joe.
Wake up, Joe.
Let's go.
They're up two, Hawks are up 2-0.
Oh, good.
How many years is this for?
Don't go too far, Joe.
Yeah. Okay, I have the second one. Office of the Mayor Proclamation. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the plantings of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. Whereas trees in our village increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas the Village of Hoffman Estates has been recognized as a Tree City USA town by the National Arbor Day Foundation, and we desire to continue our tree planting practices. Be it therefore resolved that William D. McLeod, acting under and by virtue of the authority vested in him by the Constitution of the State of Illinois and laws of this village of Hoffman Estates, hereby proclaim Friday, April 28th, 2017, as Arbor Day in the village of Hoffman Estates, and urge all Hoffman Estates residents and businesses to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, he urges all citizens to plant trees and promote the well-being of this and future generations.
Chair will accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Our Arbor Day celebration will be April 28th at 10 a.m. at Arbor Park on Downing Drive. And Frank Whiteley School will once again participate with that with us. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have a motion carried. Joe? No snow, right? No snow. Okay, good. Hawks up 2-0. That's good, too.
Yeah.
Had a couple of appointments. Labrinka Chavez to the Youth Commission. Chair would accept a motion.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have a motion carried. Laura Prashant to the Disabled Commission.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have a motion carried. Tuesday, April 4th, Mr. Kramer and I visited ICAR out in the western part of Hoffman Estates and talked to them about their business and what's going on out there. Wednesday the 5th, I participated in the Executive Committee of the Northwest Municipal Conference, and the Nominating Committee met shortly after that, and we made a recommendation on who the officers for next year will be. After that, the Herald took the pictures of the newly elected mayors. They do that every time. And on the evening, at April 5th, we had the Celtic Fest committee meeting. And on April 7th, we had the DARE graduation at Lakeville Elementary School. And on Saturday, the Transition Summit by the Commission for Disabled Citizens, with Congressman Roscom stopped by and spoke and interacted with everyone. That was really good. Monday the 10th, we had the Whiteley Elementary School DARE graduation. On the 11th, I attended a dinner, my wife Joni and I, for Ruth Jonah and Bob Frankel on their retirement from the Schaumburg District Library. Bob's been on for 40 years, and Ruth, I guess, was only 32.
New bird person.
Yeah, very good. They'll both be missed, and we really appreciate their service. Wednesday the 12th, I had Bob Kaplan was mayor for the day. Bob's a member of the
Oh, I would have
Schaumburg
liked to have
54
seen that, yeah.
school district. Yeah, we had a great time. We had a really good time. And on Friday, we had April 14th, I had several events that I went to also. The 15th, we had some Easter egg hunts. Went to the one at Fabrini Park and the one at Pine Park, which my grandchildren, a couple of them participated in, which was very good. We had coffee with the council. And today we had the cupcake viewing at Harper. I appreciate Trustee Gaeta going out to Elgin Community College and doing that. Yeah, and they let us eat cupcakes, so you really started a trend. Before, they never let you eat them. You just looked at them.
I took pictures of all of them when I was
Yes, you
there.
did. And we had some board and commission interviews, and then, of course, we had the Plum Farms public hearing, which seemed like it was a long time ago. And that's all I got. We'll move on to trustee comments. Trustee Vandenberg.
Okay, well, this is my last board meeting, and I've been thinking a lot about, what do I want to say? And I have lots of thank yous, and so please forgive me for reading some of them. I just can't remember all the stuff I wanted to say. First of all, I'd like to thank the staff for their tireless work and what they do. How lucky are we to have two chiefs, Chief Boss and Chief Jurian, to protect our community and keep the safety of our village. Also, to all the department heads and their staff who work for them, what you do is just remarkable. Thank you for the support you've given me in the past 4 years. And speaking of support, thank you to our support staff of Jen, Sue, and Deb. You're all the best. I'd like to congratulate Bill, Bev, Karen, Mike, and Karen on winning your recent election race. You ran a really clean, honest race, and it just proves what good people you are. To Karen Arnett, who's not here, I'm sorry she's not here. I want to
He was here.
Yeah,
I want to tell her how happy I am for her to be a Hoffman Estates trustee. She's going to be great for the village. She's got new ideas, she speaks her mind, and she's not afraid to stand up for what she thinks. And she is going to be a wonderful trustee. Karen and Mike, keep up the good work. Our village runs very smooth and smartly because of your leadership. Karen, I've known you for a really long time. It has been an honor serving with you. I have learned so much from you. And I look forward to when we can serve again in the future. I'm sure sometime down the road we will.
To these committees.
Yep. Mike, I remember a conversation we had so many years ago. You know what I'm going to say.
Probably.
And I told you about an opening on the zoning board. It doesn't seem that long ago, but look where you are today.
And you started it all.
I did. Your cheerfulness is certainly contagious. And since we're backyard neighbors, I hope that you will continue to shout out at me, hello, hello, hello.
Shall do, as long as Jack says it's okay.
Gary, Anna, and Gary, thank you so much for the help that you have given me as a trustee. Keep up the good work that you do. Gary, thank you for your guidance throughout the years. Sitting next to you for the last 4 years has been very helpful to me. Serving with you on the Plan Commission, as where we started, I've learned so much about the village government, and it has been an honor to serve with you. Anna, there's a reason why you were the top vote getter in the election 2 years ago. You're smart, you're compassionate, and you really see the whole picture. Thank you so much for being an advocate for our seniors and for the environment. Gary, what can I say? You have a knack for saying the right things at the right time. You do what's best for the village. Being a self-proclaimed money man, you never cease to amaze me. You really are able to look at the whole picture in a project and judge it fairly. I admire you for your good work. Keep that contagious smile and good attitude, and I look forward to meeting you at Starbucks sometime so we can meet for coffee and you can fill me in on what's going on. Bev, being the clerk is not an easy job, but your organizational skills are outstanding, and that's why you're the best clerk in the state, probably the best clerk in the United States. The voters know this. So let's meet for a lemon martini or a fireball.
No. Offer she can't refuse.
Let's go.
Mayor McLeod, how fortunate Hoffman Estates is to have you as mayor. No one ran against you because we all know that you're the most qualified leader in Hoffman Estates. Your leadership, your ability to guide is an inspiration to all. I have learned so much working for you. You've got common sense and foresight, and this makes you such a great mayor. Art and Patty, your legal knowledge is so vast. The village is really lucky to have you both. As we know, being corporate counsel is not an easy job, but we are very, very lucky to have you both. Jim, we all know who runs the ship here. You're on top of everything. Thank you very much for opening that door, by the way, because it was starting to get a little warm in here.
I looked at all of them, I said, come on, it takes me to figure out to open the door?
I'm surprised Ryan didn't, Albert. As our village manager, you run this ship with honesty, integrity, and fairly. The village is truly, truly lucky to have you. So being a trustee for the last 4 years has been an experience that I will treasure forever. I've learned so much about village government. I'll miss my time with you all and remember my time very fondly. I'm starting a new chapter in my life. Thank you, Jack. Thank you for being here as well.
He's back.
Excited about that. But I'm still going to miss being a trustee and working to continue to make Hoffman Estates grow to greatness. Thank you.
I can safely speak for everyone by saying we are very fortunate to have you as a colleague.
Thank you.
As a member of this great village team, and you did an outstanding job, so. We know we'll see you around. You're not getting out of being co-chair at a Platts concert.
No.
So, you're not going.
No way.
Thank you. Trustee Stanton.
You're real short. On the 7th and 10th of this month, I was at their graduations, one at Lakeview, one at Whiteley, and on the 15th, I did attend the coffee with the board. That's it. And congratulations to Trustee Vandenberg for her 4 years of service. She did it very well.
Thank you very much.
Trustee Mills.
Well, first of all, on the old schedule, I want to thank everyone for giving me another chance to serve another 4 years here. From Election Day on the 4th, I truly feel blessed to have that. Of course, after tonight's meeting, I don't know about that, but it's a challenge, but it's a good one, so I appreciate the confidence. On the 5th, right back into it, went to the Economic Development Committee meeting that afternoon, Stormwater Management Committee that evening, and then out to Northwest Mosquito Abatement District meeting that night. On the 6th, we had Tip a Cop event over at Claim Jumpers to support Special Olympics, and the officers were doing a great job that night. On the 8th, also attended the Transition Summit here that was put on by our Disabled Commission. They sponsored it. It was a great event. There was probably about 75, 80 people here. For those having family members over the age of 21 that are still in need of assistance, it was a great turnout and looked like they were getting some fantastic information that day. This past Saturday, had also attended with the mayor to Fabrini Park for the first Easter egg hunt, but then we had coffee with the board here later that morning. I hope everyone had a happy holiday weekend. And Trustee Vandenberg, what can I say? I am definitely going to miss you. You have been a great addition to our board for 4 years. And as you said, we've known each other for more years than we wish to count.
At least
I will
5.
definitely miss you. And thank you for all you've given us. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Palafis.
I have so much to say. Let me start with Trustee Vandenberg. Gal, I'm going to miss. I'm going to miss you more than words can actually communicate.
Watch out, Jack's out there.
And I knew it. I knew it when Jack was giving her a rose a month, and I hope you keep doing that, Jack. I hope you get to hundreds of roses. because, watching the whole process from the front seat of being your co-chair at the Platts concert and just doing other things with you was fabulous. And it was a pleasure to go along on that ride with you as you were falling for that guy. And who happens to be a South Barrington resident, by the way. But anyway, just throwing that out there. But I'll miss you. I know we'll still have the Platts concert to have a little fun at, and keep Mark and Ryan around and having some fun with us, and Rachel. Moving on from that, I just wanted to, again, congratulate Maggie and Mike, for the Life Segment Awards. Man, what some just great people out there, and how cool is the story that, she was helping mitigate her daughter and a friend fighting and walked in and saved this guy's life. I didn't think they were ever going to stop hugging. I don't know about you guys. I'm like, okay, it's been more than 10 seconds. But it was pretty cool. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So anyway, all of that is great. I also wanted to, Steve and Eva, thank you for staying. I went to the Plan Zone Committee. I was one of the 2 Hoffman residents with Trustee Gata that was here that night. And I was sitting back there, and you guys just ran a great meeting, and it was great hearing all of the detail, about the questions you and your committee ask. And I love going to those things. I used to crash, when Stanton was the chair, I used to crash the Cabela's meetings, right around the time we got elected. I know more about Cabela's than I ever wanted to. And then the arena. But hats off to you guys for conducting those meetings the way you do. I don't think we tell you thank you enough. But it was great being there, and I actually learned a lot from those questions and answers about the whole development as a whole. Other than that, coffee with the board was fun. Saturday was a good time. So it's fun, seeing our relationship build with 220. I hope we continue that collaboration. I hope, we do more with South Barrington, Barrington Hills, all of these different BACOG groups, because we shouldn't ignore the fact, that there's these invisible lines somebody drew on a map 100 years ago. We're really all neighbors. So I think we're off to a good start there. Other than that, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Newell.
Okay, short and sweet. On the 5th, I attended the Stormwater Management meeting. On the 8th, the Transition Summit meeting, and as Trustee Mills had mentioned, it was a great meeting, a lot of people, a lot of great presentations. On the 12th, Representative Mussman held her town hall meeting here and answered a lot of important questions of what can be going on in the state among our residents. On the 15th was Coffee with the Board. That was another lively meeting. Then Trustee Gale, we're going to miss you. We really wish you the best of luck, and I'm not going to try to tear up on this one, because wish you the best on your endeavors, and with that guy back there too, so whatever it may be, okay? Congrats, of course, to Mayor McLeod, Clerk Bev. Look forward to working with you for another few years, and to Trustee Mills, Trustee Gata, and Trustee Arnett, and that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Trustee Newell. Trustee Gata.
Okay, I'll take up the rear again, right? On Wednesday, April 5th, attended the Stormwater Management Committee meeting here at Village Hall. And then on Friday, the 7th, attended the DARE graduation at Lakeview Elementary School. And then on Monday, the 10th, also attended the DARE graduation at Whiteley School. And then Tuesday, April 11th, I went in place of the mayor, which, of course, I enjoy cupcakes, so this was ideal. Absolutely. The cupcake viewing and judging for the upcoming Bon Appetit event, which is going to be held at the Stonegate Convention Center, which is, I think, next Thursday is when it's going to be. And this was held at Elgin Community College. And they allowed us to taste every one of those cupcakes, right? And it was very difficult. Wait till you see the two that we decided on, Also, on the 11th, attended the senior citizens meeting here at Village Hall. And then also on the 11th, I attended the Hanover Township meeting, where I was elected and took the oath to be the moderator for the meeting. This was In fact, at this meeting, the trustees elect a person to conduct the meeting. The agenda was like 8 pages long and it had about 12 to 14 items on there. And it was a great honor to do this. This was the first time that I had done anything like this. And in fact, one of the trustees is sitting right here, Steve Caramelli, on that. And it's very similar to what we do here, all right, with the exception of when we vote, then they take the gavel and you, right, to every time. And I missed one, and I think the secretary said,
We're going to have to budget for a
quick.
gavel.
What's that?
A couple of them.
Yes, right? But if you ever get the opportunity and you are asked to, as far as for the Hanover Township, do not refuse. It was the most exciting part of the, for me anyways, being that way. What else we need? And then on Wednesday, the 12th, the town hall meeting, I attended that with trustee Anna Newell. This was State Representative Michelle Mussman, which was right here. There was an excellent crowd, and as far as the questions and so forth. And not least of all, we're going to miss you, Gail, right? Yes, you were my neighbor. And two, just like you said before, I had no idea that I was going to get involved with the village whatsoever. And you talked me into filling out an application. And I ended up, 5.5 years on the planning and the zoning, right? And then, of course, I was asked if I wanted to run for trustee, and look at this, all right? And I want to thank everybody who voted for me, everybody here that voted. It's a trip that I have really and truly enjoyed, but that's enough. Everybody wants to get home. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. All right?
Thank you, Trustee Gata. We'll move on to 6C, Village Manager's Report.
Just one thing, Mayor. You discussed Arbor Day on the 28th. At noon that day, for the trustees at least, we're doing a Wear Blue for Autism Awareness, and there'll be a picture taken here at noon if you want to go from Arbor Day here and be part of that.
Also, Mayor, the 22nd, we have for Arbor Day for Hanover.
Haverford?
Holy Moses, I got all these H's on that. Haverford Place, right, that we are celebrating with them on Arbor Day, and that's this Saturday, I think at 10 o'clock or so.
That's my report.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for everybody who contributed to the Village Manager's Report. Village Clerk's Report, 6D.
Gail, like everyone else said, we'll miss you. Also on Saturday, after Arbor Day at Haverford, we're having a speaker series here, starting at 1, so, and it's Monet, blah, 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 blah.
Come on.
That, I don't know. I know I got snacks already in my office for it, and running from Arbor Day to here. So, 1 o'clock and after Arbor Day. That's it.
Okay, move on to 6C, Treasurer's Report.
Have we gained any interest during the time of this meeting?
Yes. Chair would take a motion to accept the Treasurer's Report.
I make a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions? See none, can you pull the board, Madam Clerk?
Trustee Palafis.
Aye.
Trustee Stanton.
Aye.
Trustee Gata.
Aye.
Trustee Vanderberg.
Aye.
Trustee Mills.
Aye.
Trustee Newell.
Aye.
Mayor McLeod.
Aye, motion carried. Move on to committee reports, Public Health and Safety, Trustee Gata.
Yes, Public Health and Safety Committee will hold their meeting here in Hoffman Estates on April 24th, 2017. We will have a roll call to establish a quorum. We will have approval of the minutes of March 27th, 2017. Under new business, we have 6 items. The first item, request authorization to waive bidding and order 8 Ford Explorer utility vehicles from Morrow Brothers Ford, Greenfield, Illinois, low bidder, in the amount not to exceed $231,160. Number 2, request authorization to enter into a 2-year radio communication systems equipment maintenance contract with Chicago Communications, LLC, Elmhurst, Illinois, in an amount not to exceed $752.30 per month. It's sole bidder. Number 3, request acceptance of the Police Department monthly report. Number 4, request acceptance of the Health Human Services monthly report. And number 5, request acceptance of the Emergency Management Coordinator monthly report. And 6, request acceptance of the Fire Department monthly report. We will have a President's report if there's anything and other items in review, and we will have an adjournment.
Thank you, Trustee Gata. Trustee Palafis, Finance Committee.
Yes, sir. Before I read this, I just wanted to let you know I'm going to have to dial in next Monday. I know how much you guys love that, but I'm going to ask Anna to double up on your committee. So, because I can't read it over the phone, it just doesn't sound good. And
Anna doesn't
you know.
spend as much money as you do either.
Yeah, I know. She's way harder on the finances. But immediately following public health and safety, we'll call to order through our roll call to establish quorum. Anna will ask for an approval of the minutes for March 27th, 2017, and then she'll conduct 5 new business items. As I get to vote first on every one of them, thank you. But the first is request authorization to go out to bid for electricity, select a supplier based on the recommendation of Energy Choices, and allow the village manager to enter into a contract with a third-party supplier for the Sears Center Arena, which draws a lot of electricity. Number 2, request authorization to waive bid and award a contract to CDW Government Desktop Computer Statewide Master Contract CMS 701124B for the purchase of 60 desktop computers in an amount not to exceed $41,378.40. Items 3, 4, and 5 will be the request acceptance of the Finance Department monthly report, Information Systems Department monthly report, and the Sears Center monthly report. If needed, a President's report, other for items that are not on the agenda. We have no items in review, and then she will ask for an adjournment.
Public Works and Utility, Trustee Newell.
Alrighty, and then immediately following all the blah blah and the finance, we will go on to the Public Works and Utilities Committee on April 24th. We'll have a roll call and approve the minutes of March 27th, 2017. And under new business, we have 6 items. 1 is going to be the discussion regarding Tree City USA recognition. 2 is going to request approval of the updated village drainage policy, and B, the locations for the 2017 drainage improvement project. Item 3 will request the authorization to award contract for the 2017 sidewalk raising mudjacking program to Raise Right of Carroll Stream, Illinois, which is your low bid, at a unit price of $1.97 per square foot for sidewalk and an amount not to exceed $30,000. Item number 4 is request authorization to waive bidding and purchase replacement backhoe loader for unit number 56 through Westside Tractor out of Wakanda, Illinois, in an amount not to exceed $160,205.62. 5 is the request acceptance of the Department of Public Works monthly report, and 6 will be request acceptance of the Department of Development Services monthly engineering report of the Transportation and Engineering Division. If we have any additional president's report, nothing under other, and no items, and then we will adjourn.
Thank you. Trustee Mills, this will be the closest we've come to having to extend a meeting.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
Long time.
what time was it? 11 we used to go till?
Yeah, 11
I
o'clock,
didn't-
yeah.
I was watching.
And Kerry Collins isn't here, so you know, somebody should call him.
We used to always have to make the motion to,
It's coming next week.
And he voted no. That was the last time he voted no. So I hope he's watching.
Trustee Mills, you're having a special.
yes, I'm having a special, I think I'll have a special Planning, Building, and Zoning Committee meeting next Monday night, following the other 3 meetings. Can't quite remember what the topic is we're going to be talking about. think it has something to do with Plum Farms.
Okay, sounds good. 7, Planning and Zoning Commission reports.
Mayor, you'd want to table
Yeah, I
all
think-
those?
Yeah,
We're going to have to table these.
make a motion to table A, B, C, and D.
To the next board meeting?
Yeah, to the next board meeting.
So moved.
I'll second.
Did make it.
May
would
1st.
May
be
1st, that'd be,
First.
yeah,
May
that'd be the
1st.
plan. You have anything you want to throw in, Chairperson Combs? You're still laughing about the Kerry Collins crack, yeah.
She wishes she had known this before she got out.
Exactly.
Should make Steve take you out for
What else
drinks
could I
or
have done
something.
with my life tonight?
No, it's because Steve had to come with tonight, too, to
Yeah.
put up with this.
Right. Is he packing? You know.
Always.
We have a motion, a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have a motion carried. Move
Okay,
on
I'm
to
going to make
8.
a motion to,
Yes.
I'm going to make a motion, we defer 8, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H.
I'll make a
And
motion.
Item M has to be deferred too because we never got this letter from the county.
Oh, okay.
Right.
And M.
I'll make a motion to defer A, B, C, D, E, F, and
That's what
M.
I said.
Oh, you
It's
made,
a
oh, then I
second.
second. Sorry.
There's a
I
motion.
thought you were asking.
No,
Yeah,
I was
okay,
making
sorry.
that motion.
It's getting late.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have a motion carried. We got several items still up here. We have request board approval of a resolution approving certain real estate to be appropriate for the Class 6B incentive program, Plum Grove Printers. Request board approval of release of a portion of open space easements at 1766 Sherwood Drive to
So
construct
moved.
a shed. No, we're going to do them all.
Yeah, wait.
Request board
Omnibus.
approval at one, A, an extension of the lease between the Village of Hoffman Estates and the Children's Advocacy Center to December 31st, 2030. And 2, site plan for a butterfly garden. L, request board approval of the Barrington Square Town Center TIF reimbursement request in the amount of $9,002,544.97. N, request board authorization to award contract for the 2017 street revitalization project to Arrow Road Construction. Low bid in amount not to exceed $5,682,345.86. And O, request board authorization to award contract for materials testing for the 2017 street revitalization project to Applied Geoscience, Inc., Schaumburg, Illinois. Low proposal in amount not to exceed $125,000.
Move to approve by omnibus votes items 8I, J, K, L, N, O.
I second.
There's a motion, a second for an omnibus vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have a motion carried.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion, a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, can you call the roll, Madam Clerk?
Trustee Palafis.
Aye.
Trustee Stanton.
Aye.
Trustee Gata.
Aye.
Trustee Vandenberg.
Aye.
Trustee Mills.
Aye.
Trustee Newell.
Aye.
Mayor McLeod.
Aye, motion carried. The chair would accept with great enthusiasm a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion, a second. Any discussion?
No.
Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned.
Not allowed.
10:39.
Undebatable.